Hello YouTube. So, as you may guess from the title of this video, this is a little bit more of a serious video than I usually make on this channel. And to kind of drive my point home, I want to tell you guys an anecdote about something that happened to me when I was a little girl, and the circumstances therein. So it's a story about a pretty severe instance of bullying. So that may not be what people want to hear. So it may be a little harsh. So I will go ahead and leave a timestamp in the description down below if you want to skip over the story and just get to the more general discussion of this video. I would completely understand. I just want to make sure that I get this disclaimer out, that I'm going to be talking about something pretty hard to talk about and to hear about, and I think it's important that I'm completely transparent about my experiences, and that's very important to me. So if you don't want to hear it, I will leave the timestamp down in the description for you to skip ahead if you like. Okay, so with that said, let's get into the topic of the video. So today's topic is going to be about bullying, as you guessed from the title. Bullying. It sucks. So I didn't have a lot of experience with bullying in my first 5 years of schooling. When I was growing up, I grew up with the same class of people because I went to the same school from kindergarten to 5th grade. These were people that I had known pretty much since day one. So, I mean, sometimes they could say mean things, and there were some pretty awful things that happened to me then, that I don't want to get into at this point. But, you know, for the most part, it was a pretty good experience. I wasn't really bullied. But then, in the middle of my 5th grade year, my family had to move, and we moved to another city. And calling it a city was honestly generous. It's a town by the name of Winslow, Arizona. And we moved there for a couple of different reasons that aren't really important to this video, and I was immediately the new kid. And it was the first time that I had ever been the new kid, so I was completely caught off guard. I was really upset about the move, and to top it all off, this was right when my medical problems started to go south. Pretty immediately, I noticed that there was kind of a culture of intimidation in Winslow, Arizona, in the school systems. There were gangs, there was lots of drug activity in Winslow. There were a lot of meth labs and addicts, and we had several instances in that town that were frankly pretty dangerous in the 9 months that we lived there. And in that time, I had been a conflict manager at my old elementary school, which meant that I saw instances of teasing. I helped mediate arguments between classmates. So I was very much the goody two-shoes kid who was definitely a tattletale. If I saw something that I considered bullying, I would turn you in. And I still do. I'm still very much that person who will confront the issue head on. But in Winslow, I learned that was a bad... That was a good way to get on the bad side of some very not nice people. So I immediately made a bunch of enemies, following an incident where some of the other students were throwing rocks through the chain link fence at some homeless people who were walking past the school. And I noticed this group of young women who were throwing rocks, and so I told them to stop. When I told them to stop, they threatened to throw rocks at me, and I called their bluff and turned them in. From that point, they began to see me as the enemy, and they began to target me with a lot of harassment. It was at this point in my life that I started to kind of question my physical appearance, because it was never really important at my old school. No one commented on it because this had been how I always looked. And because I was getting sick, that meant I was also gaining weight because my exercise was cut down pretty severely overnight. And the physical activity that my body was used to was just suddenly gone. So I started to rapidly gain weight. And it was about this time that, every kid was starting to go through puberty, and so that meant body hair, and it meant hormonal changes, and I got picked on a lot for just basic things that every person goes through when they hit puberty. And I began to feel very ashamed of myself and my body image, and even still, I just tried to keep my head up and push on. I could handle the teasing. It did leave some pretty epic wounds. I won't sugarcoat that, but I thought I could handle it, and I think, honestly, I could. I could handle a little bit of teasing. Because at the end of the day, I knew that none of these people cared about me, and their opinions didn't matter. I could rationalize that. The problem began when I made enemies with a couple of the boys in my grade, and I quickly learned that they were not just the teasing kind. They were very physical bullies. They threatened me with violence on numerous occasions, and at one point, I don't think that they meant to hurt me as much as they would have if they had gotten away with what they wanted to do. If they had managed to do what they were planning, I honestly think they could have killed me. And I don't know that they knew that. So, just something to bear in mind before I tell you this story. So, I was 11 years old and confined to a wheelchair. It was your standard wheelchair that you would see in a hospital. It wasn't very good. It was very, very heavy. And my teacher would usually push me in between classes because that was just the best way for me to keep on pace with the rest of the class. It was just easiest if someone was pushing me because I didn't really know where I was going at that point. The school was set up in this giant circle, so it was very easy to get lost. So these kids, 5 of them, 2 of them were girls, 3 of them were boys. They decided that they were going to volunteer. One of them volunteered to push my chair instead of the teacher. And my teacher agreed. And I figured that they were just going to taunt me and it was going to be fine. So reluctantly, I kind of let them. I stayed mostly in control, but I just kind of let them stand there and mock me and tease me, and I didn't really care. And then something happened, and I'm not really sure how premeditated this was. But the boy who was pushing my chair suddenly veered and pushed me very quickly towards the stairs. He pushed me over towards the stairs and started to push me off of them, and I managed to grab hold of the grips and on one side the spokes of my wheel, and I started pulling back. And as they pushed forward and I pulled back, I provided enough counterbalance to keep myself from falling. Unfortunately, they managed to push the 2 front wheels of my wheelchair over the edge before I was able to stop them. So I was at a decided disadvantage. I was also at a very bad angle, so my grip on my wheels was slipping, and I was pretty inexperienced at this point in a wheelchair. I had no idea what I was supposed to do, and I panicked. And I didn't scream, I didn't yell, I just started desperately trying to push myself backwards. And I think it was 2 of them who were trying to push, and the other 3 were just cheering it on. And all of a sudden, my teacher comes back around the corner, sees what they're doing, and immediately tells them to pull me back. And so they do. And they kind of explain it away as they lost control of the chair, they slipped, and they were trying to pull me back over the edge. And I don't believe that my teacher believed them. Unfortunately, she didn't punish them because she couldn't prove that they'd done anything wrong. And I didn't tell anyone. That was a mistake. I didn't tell anyone. As a result of my not telling anyone, as time went by, they became more aggressive. I saw to it that they were never allowed to push me again, and my teacher, I believe, stopped them from ever being in control of me, and she prevented them from being alone with me, but she never directly punished them, which is disappointing. I made sure to take care of myself as best as I could. In the meantime, one of my female bullies ended up having a medical situation, and I helped. And even though she had been tormenting me throughout the year, she called me Chewbacca. It was one of her favorite insults. I saw to it that she was taken care of, and I went to check on her when no one else would. And in bridging that gap, I think it kind of clued her in to how awful she had been to me. And that act of compassion helped to kind of open up her eyes, and she began to treat me more like her equal and less like someone she hated, which was a relief. So I began to, the abuse from the other girls in my grade kind of ebbed away, and I became friends with them. At least friendly. And, okay. So this next one I will kind of glaze over because this is already getting pretty long, but one of the boys who had been responsible for trying to push me off the stairs also threatened to sick, I guess you could say, his cousin on me. And his cousin was well known for being a very drugged up gang member who was suspended and thrown out of his school for violence. And so he was a very frightening individual, especially for a young kid like myself. And after walking home one day, on my way home, I realized that this cousin was, in fact, following me. And this girl that had bullied me, the one that I helped, she actually turned this boy in for me. She stepped up, and she was my voice, and she turned him in. And luckily, nothing came of it, but it was a very terrifying experience. And a few months later, we ended up thankfully moving out of that town, so I don't think anything else could have come of it in the time that we lived there. So, on to some basic things that I want to talk about. So, bullying is hard. Bullying is incredibly cruel, and it leaves lasting, damaging marks on a person. That's something that I know very well. It's something that I know from firsthand experience. It's something I've seen in my brother and in several of my friends. Harassment and violence leave a horrible mark on the people who experience it. So first, I want to talk to people who witness bullying. One of the most important things that you can do to help someone who is being bullied is to tell someone. Especially in school, go to a teacher, go to a trusted teacher, go to the principal, go to someone who can stop this. Because it may look like none of your business, but it is absolutely your business if you believe that that person will continue to be bullied. Or even if you believe that what is happening is wrong. If someone is bullying another person, tell someone. Stand up and say something. Even if you're afraid, say something. Because trust me, you could be saving that person so much pain, and as dark as it may sound, you may actually be saving their life. That is so important. If you see something happening, and if you see someone being bullied, don't go up to the bully. Don't push over on that bully. Don't get in their face and push on them. Go tell someone with authority so that they can handle that. Don't put yourself in harm's way, but make sure that you tell someone, and you make sure that what is happening stops. That is so important. And if you see that person who is being bullied, if you see them and they look upset, it is okay to go over and comfort them. And it is honestly probably a pretty good idea to just tell them that they are not alone, and to be kind. An act of compassion can change someone's whole day, that can change their attitude, and it can change someone's life. A single act of compassion can change someone's point of view in an instant. So if you see someone who is struggling, say something to them and to someone who can help. You are never being an intrusion by helping someone in need. That is very important. So, to the people who are being bullied, I now want to talk to you guys. I know it's hard. People can be cruel and insensitive. They can be awful. I know. People can make you doubt yourself, your intelligence, your body, your mind. They can make you doubt that people love you, or that you will be safe, or that you can turn to someone to be safe. Don't let anyone tell you that you are not worth it, and that you are not worthy, and that you are not loved. Don't let anyone tell you that you are worthless, because you're not. You are the only person in this whole universe who is uniquely you. There is only one of you, and that is precious. Hold on to that. Don't let anybody take that from you. You are special. A way to kind of help with bullying is to remember that most people who are being bullies do so because they themselves are bullied, or because they themselves feel out of control, or weak, or small. They are trying to hurt you to feel better about themselves. Don't let them. For your sake and for theirs. Don't show them that that is a good way to behave, or that they will get what they want, because at the end of the day, then they win. If someone is hurting you, or bullying you, or harassing you, tell someone. Tell someone with the authority to stop it. If you have to defend yourself, that's okay. But make sure that you are doing what you have to do to take care of yourself. Do not become the bully to stop the bullying. That's a cycle that you cannot start. If you want to stop the bullying, go to somebody who can help you. Don't act out in violence. That will only prove them right. They win at that point. Get help. Be honest and speak up. And don't let anybody tell you that you are not 100% necessary and worthy and important. Because you are all of those things. There is only one of you, and you cannot be replaced. You cannot be replaced in the eyes of the people who care about you, and they are what's important. Your opinion of yourself is the most important thing that there is in this whole world. There is a little exercise that this speaker at my elementary school used to tell us to do, and I used to think it was so dumb. But it's not. Every morning when you wake up, go to a mirror. Maybe it's when you're brushing your teeth, or when you've just gotten done going to the bathroom and you're washing your hands, and just look yourself in the eye in the mirror and say, I love myself. I am worthy. I love myself. Even if in that moment you don't believe it, tell yourself that you are worthy, and that you are unique, and that you are loved. Even if you don't feel it. Because someday, I promise, you will.